All right. What's up, Mcnames?
How much are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just had a good got a little workout in today, played a little golf. Got some work
Golf
done.
today, huh? Early
Yeah, it
or
wasn't no, I actually went when it was starting to rain and the wind was out. It was not my lowest round, but it was fun to play in.
oh
Um
you hit with the wind, it was probably pretty good.
yeah, a couple holes I hit pretty good drives.
Yeah.
But
Where'd you
it
play it?
didn't Atwood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went down a couple weeks ago, played Prairie View. Have you played there at all?
I haven't played there recently, but I played there last year.
Yeah, I hadn't played there.
I was actually about to play there today, potentially this morning, but
Yeah,
I changed my plans. But
yeah.
you went and played?
Yeah, me, Walters, another buddy, Eric. That's a great course. The
Yeah,
greens are so fast
really.
compared to what I'm used to sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like around here though the greens speed up during a certain time of year, kind of like that dry phase of the fall when it's
Yeah.
pretty fast. Uh but yeah, I mean it's tough. I like to play. I was talking to somebody last week about the speed of the greens and how it makes me putt better because I have to put less emphasis on speed and more just focusing on the line, I guess. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. If you're not putting well, like I was not that day. I had probably a 4 footer on the one long par three on the front for birdie, and I ended up bogeying. I thought I tapped it and hit it by about 5 feet and missed it coming back.
yeah, that's one of the downfalls of it.
Yeah.
Um, but before we get too off into the weeds,
Yep.
um, this is a wrestling podcast. We're going to talk about some wrestling, and we just finished up. I don't know if you. I mean, I know we talked before, but the test of the best. I caught up with
Yeah.
Marty last the other day. Talked about the results and stuff, and then we had Jake Messink on to talk about Harlem and some of the things that he's got going on over there. Um, I thought it was pretty good, just from the test of the best standpoint. The guys that went and wrestled, the guys and girls that wrestled, was it was pretty nice to see them do well. How did you think it went?
Yeah. I thought it was, I mean, definitely the guys from the Northern Illinois area had a pretty good showing. I think only a couple lost. Colin Young, who used to be Belvedere kid, lost and was it double overtime to the Jens kid. Um,
Yeah,
Caught in kind of being on top. Did you watch the matches?
yeah,
Yeah, and it was kind of I don't know. I didn't a bad scramble for him where he kind of got out of position, but I thought he still wrestled well. And then I think the Silva kid was the only other kid from the local area that lost, right?
yeah,
And he ran into that the ship kid from Galesburg's pretty. He's not flashy, but he's very solid in what he does. He sets up. He had that little high crotch shot, and he sticks with it. He sets it
yeah.
up pretty nicely. Um, I watched the podcast and listened to you and Marty talk, and I think Marty likes to keep things a little close to the vest still when you talk kind of nigga. He doesn't like to talk a lot, but the
He doesn't.
Cassiope boys, they're pretty impressive. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh,
he
he
acts
was
like,
definitely trying to
oh
be modest about it.
yeah, oh he beat who? The Bruno. I
Like,
mean, he handled the Alanis kid who's going to be a senior, a defending state champ, or maybe he's only going to be a junior. I don't know what year he is, but
I
either
don't
way,
know what.
he was a state champ last year, and Bruno wrestled him pretty tough. I mean, controlled the tempo and controlled the match. He was pretty solid.
Yeah, yeah. He kind of played it off like he didn't even watch it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you know,
He already
he
knew.
was watching.
Yeah,
Yeah. He's like, "Oh, you gonna tell me about that?" Yeah. But here's a funny side note. So I've been talking to people about the podcast and stuff. And, I heard that some of the athletes were listening to the podcast last week with the preview show.
Okay.
And one, it's kind of cool to just know that we have the potential to have them as an audience member, right? Which is cool.
Well, yeah.
And then two, I just thought it was just cool because they were talking about um, the banter, I guess, between allegiance. Like obviously Marty is a Hananiga coach,
Right.
so he's like all in on Hananiga, and you're a Belvedere coach, so you should and always will be able to have that Belvedere connection. So it's kind of cool to start to see that people recognize that there's that I don't know, competitive spirit, I guess, is kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. The one thing I don't think you ever lose is that, you've been wrestling long enough or coaching long enough, you always have a competitiveness to you. Like, I was, Belvedere for, I've been there 28 years now and coached for 25, so it's always going to be a loyalty there. So I'm always going to, have that, especially with a guy like Marty, you want to, anytime you can match up against him and talk a little smack and hope for your kids to do well,
Yeah.
But at the end, to me, that I like those things that test of the best. And it kind of reminds me, like at the end of the year, you get that chance. Like I want to see the conference kids do well, because
Yeah.
it's good for our conference. Like we've talked about, anything that can bring positive energy and awareness to the sport of wrestling, especially for our conference and for the North. I mean Dakota, um, the what Wetzel or Wenzel or the
Yeah, Noah Wenzel.
yeah, that's great for them. It's great for this area to have kids go in there and compete. So I'll root for those kids, but unless they're a wrestling, Belvedere kid,
Yeah.
I was really hoping. I think the people wanted to see the tennis and Cassiope matchup. You know, I wanted to
Yeah.
see.
Well,
Now we'll have to wait.
potentially, well, we might not have to wait too long because, one thing that we could talk about today is the Super 32 tournament that's coming up
Mm-hmm.
this weekend. And
Yep.
so I pulled up the list of people who are wrestling in it, and everyone who wrestled in the test of the best, except for the girls. I didn't look at the girls' weight classes. Um,
Yeah.
every one of the boys are wrestling in the Super 32. So Noah Wenzel from Dakota, Bruno, Jimmy Masney, Rocco, and Bruno Cassiope, Colin Young, and Braden Tennyson. So Braden
Okay.
is wrestling 113, and Bruno is wrestling 113. So
Okay.
there's a possibility that,
Potential.
yeah,
Hey, real quick, and not by any means, I didn't mean to, but we kind of overlooked like the girls that wrestled there at the test of the best from the northern. They looked tough too. I mean, the Cassiope girl. I mean, she's always looked tough, but the one who really, Natavia, I've watched her wrestle. You see her wrestle the boys, and she does fairly well there. Um, I've seen her wrestle and the girls, but that's the most impressive I've been with her. I mean, she had a couple girl doubles on that girl where she just powered through, and she looked really
lifted,
good. I
lifted,
was really
slam.
impressed with her.
Yeah,
That
no,
was like
yeah,
she broke that girl. That girl went out there with an attitude, and I think she broke her about midway through and just kept going. You
yeah.
know,
No, I mentioned that to Marty on the podcast. Like, that was the one match I was like, she beat her up. So that
yeah,
was, yeah, it was good to see. But yeah, so Super 32 though, these guys are wrestling, and
yeah,
there's, just thinking about one, two, three, four, five, six wrestlers that are all in the area that are wrestling. Obviously, you look at some of the areas, right? So just looking at the list of like St. Charles East kids, right? So there's one, two, three. They've got three on the same team, right? So
okay,
just thinking about the reality of like the difference between the higher level programs, and those having 2 to 3 athletes at Hononegah is pretty impressive. That's a good
Right.
thing to see. Again, I wish that we could just, I mean, obviously the Belvedere thing, we could sit and talk. 2 Belvedere kids are in, 2 Hononegah kids, and then Dakota wrestler, right?
Right.
So I mean, that's pretty good for 2 programs. We need to have more programs to have that, like whether it's programs or just people in that specific town and city, whether it's Rockford or McChesney Park or so on and so forth. Just
Right.
having that many more people would be nice to see, right? If Sindel wasn't hurt, that'd be 3 from Hononegah. So
Right.
that's good. But thinking about the, just the different areas, trying to get more involved, I think that would be good. But right
Right.
now, it seems like, remember when I showed you the graph of the state qualifiers and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it seemed that the data would suggest that there was an uptick with a group, right? There was always a group of kids that placed a lot at the state tournament and stuff like this. This seems to be one of those groups that they're going to be at that high level for 4 years, 3 years for some of them, 2 years for others, right? And that group can motivate, I guess, another group to kind of continue the trend, as opposed to in the past constantly going up and down.
Oh, no. You're right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm pretty excited. Obviously, Super 32 is just one tournament, one opportunity that shows, who's wrestling in the off season and who's trying to train to be the best. But after our last couple of podcasts and then the test of the best, I've had a lot of people reach out and talk about getting events and engagement collectively, right? So putting our
Right.
own events on of some kind in order to get people competing against one another so that they're more inclined to try to grow and develop their program, while also having a larger you know community of people that are kind of chasing the same type of thing. I think it's going to be pretty good over the next couple of years, so that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
One thing we had talked about several years ago, in the Nick 10, and it was more me and Gene kind of throwing ideas. Hey, what could we do to build some more interest? Let's, like, if we had an all-star duo, let's reach out to that big Northern Conference and Lena Winslow, Dakota. Let's, at the end of the year, let's have, they're used to their Illinois versus Indiana, seniors versus seniors. Let's have like some kind of a duel. Your best at each weight class versus the Nick 10's best. Uh, Something on that test of the best idea, where you could get, it's after the state series, so the weight classes could be altered a little bit, but it's something get the communities to kind of look forward to, and another thing to promote wrestling, in the area. They do the basketball, they do the at the end of the year they do the big schools versus the little schools game out, I think, at Harlem, so it'd be something along that lines. I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
you could include any, whoever your best kid was at that weight class. If you had a freshman that was a 106-pound state champ, he's the guy who represents the whichever conference, the Nick 10 against your best guy from whatever,
yeah.
you know.
And I think, one thing I think that is important too is, well, not important. It's just at this point, I think that that's like an inevitable aspect, right? It's an inevitable thing that's going to happen. I think the hard part is just the fact that, like, it might not always be the best of each specific place or whatever,
Right.
just because they might not want to do it. But building just an event that continues to showcase these athletes, I think that it doesn't really necessarily have to be the one versus the this conference versus that conference. It could just be athletes showcasing athletes too. So I mean,
Right.
I mean, we're gonna do something at this point. I think that's inevitable. People are on board with it. I think there's enough people that will make it feasible, regardless of whether or not everybody's involved. But yeah, I think think that's something that's definitely
Yeah,
on the horizon.
yeah, I think it'd be something cool. I mean, it would be fun to do, fun to watch.
Yeah, I was thinking about this too, and again, I don't even know if we have to like we're because we're kind of just spitballing ideas as to what we could do with the platform and just the connection from the media standpoint. But I was thinking about the idea of like going to how college programs are doing wrestle offs and stuff.
Hmm.
And it's like here's the thing. We obviously know that a lot of programs aren't going to have wrestle offs in a traditional way. They don't have wrestle offs at high school in that sense all the time, just because
Right.
I mean
Your
it just doesn't
numbers.
make sense. Yeah, yeah, it
Right.
just doesn't. It's not how it really works. But one thing that I thought would be cool is if you, myself, and Marty went and watched practice, where we could just watch athletes wrestle, and we could you know pull them up. We could talk about them. We could look at their talent. We could talk about who actually has whose potential that we should all watch out for.
Right.
Not only just to expose a casual fan of friends of family that are involved with wrestling, of that kid's name is so and so and he's at Rockford East or whatever the school is, but also to kind of give credit to that individual who has potential. I think we've talked about this with the media aspect of, like, in the past, in order for somebody to get praised, they had to go through this, like, long-term thing. And obviously now it's a little more complicated, because the opposite end of the spectrum is people get praised too much and they think they're doing really good, and that
Right.
whole thing. But the reality is, if you see somebody who has potential and you say, "Hey, look at that person's got potential," that athlete, that kid is so much more motivated to be recognized that they have potential so that they can actualize it, as opposed to them never being told that they could and not actualizing it. So, um, just being able to go in the room and see a JV wrestler that has some talent, it's like, hey, you should stick with this, and just
Right.
having that interaction, not just for us, but also so other people are aware. And I think that could just be helpful for keeping people involved. Like, Marty and I were talking about kids going from, middle school to JV, and how long do they stay if they're on JV, and they're
Right.
not that, how do you get people to buy in and put themselves in,
Right. How do you
higher level
keep
position?
the motivation or inspiration to stick with it when, hey, I'm JV and, you
Yeah.
know, egos get hurt sometimes, you know?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not as fun to be, you're not as good as others, and you're not, like,
Right.
you see the newspaper, they don't talk about the JV tournaments. They don't, they maybe mention
No.
freshman, sophomore, but the headline is always the varsity squad. So,
Right.
like you said, how do you keep people motivated and inspired to keep going?
And
I think this is a way to do it.
and I think you would agree a lot of times those varsity guys you hear about and those teams, they're that good because there's someone behind them at that pushes them, you know?
Yeah.
If you go into it, we've talked before, if I have to go in practice every day and I have to wrestle Dalton Bullard off he's coming after me and he's pushing me. I have to be at my best. It makes you better, right?
Yeah.
And look back, it's the old Iowa situation, back in the day when they had the room full of guys and who was a Whitmer got one chance to wrestle and he's a national champ. He spent 4 years behind people in the lineup, you know, but you would never, if he never got that chance to wrestle, you would have never heard anything about him, you know.
Yeah. And again, I say this to a lot of people. Motivation is the lack of motivation is simply the non-existence of a compelling future. Right. So if you have a compelling future and you believe this great opportunity or experience is going to take place, it's easy for you to be motivated to work towards it, because you see the real thing. And it's actually something to bring up with you. I remember my freshman year, I think it was freshman year, maybe it was eighth grade, and I was in the high school practice or something. But I remember you turned the lights off and you had us all lay down and like close our eyes
Yeah.
and visualize. And I remember that's one of the first moments that I thought about visualization and the idea of like putting an idea in my head, visualizing it as if it was so real that I could go get it. And I definitely think that that's one of the things that keep people from being motivated to go through that journey. Like you said, a Jesse Whitmer, where it's like, no, I know that I'm going to succeed and achieve that thing. And it's only going to be one time, but I'm going to go through not being on the varsity squad for 3 years until I get that opportunity. That can happen locally too. And they just
Oh yeah.
need to see a vision for their future. I think that right now, again, we've pressed upon this. That's one of the drawbacks of wrestling is, if people put such an emphasis at middle school and kids wrestling success that sometimes they look at it and say, well, not successful anymore. Try something else. It's like,
Right.
what do you
Yeah.
mean? I mean, wrestling,
Yeah.
if you get, you do some push-ups and you got balance and coordination. I mean, 16, 17 years old, you can figure out a lot. So, um, yeah, I think figuring out a way to
Well,
create that compelling vision is going to be
it
important.
also goes back, I think kids want quick and easy gratification. They want
Not
they don't
not
want to
just
have
kids, humans. All
yeah,
humans want that.
yeah, and
It's
exactly.
literally
They
our nature.
and that's become human nature, hey, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
And if they don't get it, they either quit or they go somewhere else where they think they can get it.
yeah. But don't you think that that's just a learned behavior of like like I was never taught that I was taught that you work towards things,
Right.
right? Like I was taught that, and then obviously the people around me showed that you work towards things. So it's like I think obviously it's in our nature to want things the easiest, fastest way possible, right? That's like why convenience food is so successful. It's
Right.
because it's like, oh, it's right there. I don't have to do anything for
I
this.
don't have to do
Awesome.
anything. I
I
just have to
want it. Yeah.
and I don't even have to
Um,
talk to anyone anymore. I just poke it in a computer and boom, there's your food.
yeah. And so no different than say health, right? So you have to
Hmm.
have a compelling future to get yourself to put in the work. So if you're somebody who's not pursuing high level health, why wouldn't you choose the most convenient option? You're not concerned with the health. So I
Right.
think getting people concerned with the idea, the vision that they could see, why is it important for somebody to want to succeed in wrestling, right? And it's like you got to get people to think that that's an important quest. And once they do that, then they'll start to realize that it's not going to be a quick route. I have to put all this work in. Because again, I think early on in my experience, somebody told me you had to outwork people. So all I thought about was like, I'm going to outwork everybody. Like if that's all I have to do,
You're right.
I'm just
Right.
I'm just going to do more than that guy or that guy or that guy.
Right.
Um, and so I think we just need to focus on some of these core ideas a little bit more, whether it's in a podcast or telling a coach to be like, hey, we need to just reinforce this over and over again.
Right.
But
And
I
that's
think,
just say, like you said, some of it's a learned trait. Your parents, your dad was a hardworking. I mean, he doesn't know not to work, right?
yeah,
So it's something that he instilled with you. He instilled you. Hey, if you want something, no matter what it is, you're going to have to work it. Like take golf. You could go out and just golf and have fun, but you want to be good. So you have to work at it. And that's
yeah,
something that you have in you. And it's not that kids don't have it, it's what's been enforced to them to a certain point, and you talk like kids club. You see these kids, the kids that get moved club to club every year, or and it's not just wrestling, it's other sports. They with some team, and then the next year, hey, we were with the Bandits, but hey, we're going to go to the Wizards this year. Oh, we were with the Wizards. Now we're going to go. Those are the
well,
kids you look at when
don't
they
go
come
too
to high
far.
school. What's their commitment? Are they going to want to
Well,
outwork
again,
people?
Yeah, but I would push back, right? So you even just gave an example of like somebody like Tony, right? Well, yeah, it worked out. He's very good. So
Right.
the idea isn't always that, right? So I'll always push back on that concept of people choosing certain places just because certain places are better than other places, and some people just are trying their
You're right.
best. And so I always think that, but I kind of understand what you're saying with the idea
I I think
of
it goes both ways. You
yeah,
take
yeah,
Tony. Tony's at,
because you could find another
Tony's at
example
extreme.
that
He's
didn't work
going
out.
where he needs to go
Yeah,
to get, but other
yeah,
parents are just taking their kids because they don't like what they're getting, you know.
exactly.
They
It
don't
is
like what they hear,
nuanced.
you
Yeah,
know. Hey, we don't, well, you're not treating Jimmy like he's the best. So these
yeah.
people told us they will, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, no, no, no. It's see, here's the problem is generalizations are good in for information wise. Like you can generalize and then go, okay, from there, what is the outlier? What's the situation that I'm gonna say I'm completely wrong about? But generally speaking, I think you are right in the sense that somebody looks at somebody, say like a Tony, and go, man, he's really good, and this is what he does. That
Right,
must be what I need to do. It's like, well, that's not necessarily true. That's what he needed to do. And it
right,
actually was a good idea for that person. But it's not what everyone needs to do. Everyone's situation is at a different point. And obviously, if we created more consistency and effectiveness at certain clubs, at the developmental club, and we had like really good systems, I think it would be easier for us never even to have the concept or conversation around people jumping around. But people who often look for shortcuts and secrets, those people will often be the ones that are jumping around. But that is an except that is not the rule that everyone who jumps around is those people,
right.
right?
No, yeah,
Um, so it's obviously I get what you're saying, and it is totally true that people are looking for things that aren't necessarily the thing, right? But
right,
there are people that are trying to pursue their individual greatness and their potential, and they need to go find another other viewpoints, other coaches, other perspectives. And like for me, dude, I just try to stay valuable and helpful to whoever I can, and if they want to stay involved and connected with me, then perfect. But
right.
no, yeah, I think it
No, yeah,
definitely just
you're a
individual
hundred percent.
families look for stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
I mean, you're correct there. I mean, for some people it's the right path, but you shouldn't base your path upon someone else's path,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Um, and going back to, you're talking about JV kids and seeing everything through. I listened to you guys talk the other day, like Marty talking, like wrestling is tough, right?
yeah,
And you've been in, you were in our program. You always heard me tell people, you make it through wrestling. There's nothing you can't do in life, right? Like quitting's not an option if you go through 4 years of wrestling at the high school level and you're dedicated to it. So I think what it teaches some kids is awesome, and that's, you talk about those JV kids who are on the, border about not sticking around. And I think that's something that has to be instilled back into them too. Like, hey, it gets tough. It's not always going your way, but if you quit at this, then you're going to find a reason in life to quit when it gets a little tough for you. Stick it
yeah,
through when good things happen. And I'm a firm believer, good things happen to good people that, worked hard for it.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's most of the time it's true. And here's this thing, like I think when you just I always look at the season as like a vision quest, right? And then like a vision quest within each year, like you become a different person after each season because you
Mm-hmm.
like compile all this time spent on one particular task, right? And all of that time changes your brain, changes your body, changes your mind, changes everything about how you think about things, how you approach things, your energy. And you know I think again, it's hard for me because I'm always trying to think about the you know knowing why you do it, the philosophy behind why you do it. And again, sometimes we focus on the other things, right? We don't focus on that stuff. We don't at least talk about it enough.
Right.
So that people know that, hey, at first it's this, and then second it's all this other stuff. So first it's about putting yourself in a season type experience where you're dedicating yourself, and then after that you think about all the accolades and all the objects that you chase after and stuff like that. But yeah,
Right.
it's a hard thing to figure out. I mean, I talked to somebody today, and just it's, you can't really plan this, right? And I actually think that this is an interesting concept, because we obviously have a lot of opinions and critiques of like how things, how people did things the wrong way or whatever. Oftentimes though, you can't really um like not again, you can't like plan it. Like it's almost like how you get motivated, how you get a goal attached, how you
Mhm.
learn a move or whatever that helps you. It's also um I don't know, it's just easier not to focus on it, because it's I think um, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know, I just don't think there's a simple way to
There's not a
tell people how to
yeah.
be good.
There's not a simple task book. This is step one, step two, step three, step four, step five. You haven't mastered. I mean,
Yeah.
especially you deal with kids, and you've seen it. It's not that easy. Some kids catch it right away. Some kids maybe
Well, not to
never get it.
mention, not to mention that most of the things that trigger hyper focus or high goal setting happen sometimes outside of wrestling room. So it's almost like, as a coach, you're just setting a kid in a place where they can be triggered to get motivated through something else, right? Something's bothering them at
Right.
home, or they don't have his friends, or they don't have interest, whatever their thing is that they're missing. This becomes sometimes an outlet for it. And so you can't you can't go around planning kids to get their hearts broken so that they want to wrestle really hard, or you can take a family and split them so there's a single parent family and this kid, like so many situations
Oh
for
yeah.
people you don't really know. So in a perfect world, maybe somebody isn't chasing wrestling greatness, right? It's like, why fighters
Well,
and boxers are sometimes kids from tough spots. It's like, yeah, because they just found it as an outlet and they poured everything into it.
yeah.
So it's hard it's hard to tell people how to be perfect, because perfect sometimes doesn't make
No.
the most motivated, hungry person.
No. And for some of those kids, it's 2 hours.
Yeah.
2 hours where they don't have to worry about what's going on in the outside world. They can just go into
Yeah.
the room and wrestle and live that wrestling life for 2 hours every day. And for some kids, the success they have from wrestling may not be wrestling success. They might never win even a conference title, but later in life they have some success because of wrestling. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
what they learned from being in wrestling, being in the practice room, the dedication, what it takes to be competitive and successful in that program, translate something later in life, and their success story. And it goes
Yeah.
back to, like, man, I remember when I was in that practice room, and man, I wanted to quit, but there's no way I could quit. Or I knew for 2 hours I could get away and you know focus my energy. And now if I can focus my energy here, I'll be you know and it could be simple. I'll start my own roofing company, shit, because
Yeah.
what I've learned, I know how to prepare for this. So
Yeah. No,
yeah,
this is
it's
one of
not
the reasons.
always about you know and it's tough to say, because I want kids to win on the wrestling,
Yeah.
but it's not always about that sometimes.
Yeah. It's definitely a gray area of like
Mhm.
what your true motivations are, I guess. But this is one of the reasons why I always push back with stuff with Marty, because I do think, well, not just with Marty, but just in general, the system or whatever. It's like, can we, like, I truly think that if a kid wants, if a kid is eight, I feel like wrestling is such a good exercise that I would never want somebody not to do it, even if they weren't trying to compete in it. It's like, so I always think about how getting people involved and competition loses so many people. And it's like, imagine, we play golf, right? Would
Right.
bring up golf. Like, we both play golf. Like, what if we only could play golf in a competitive way? And every day, and we obviously aren't pros, but we lost every week. We were like, why am I playing golf? I don't even like it at all.
Right.
Right. Um, and so I think it's such a deterrent sometimes
Yeah,
for people
no,
to just find their way in the sport, that it's like, why is there a requirement that you have to
that you
go
have
out
to
there and
compete.
prove that you're better than somebody else,
Right. Well,
you know?
and I go both sides of this, right? Like I understand that. Like, okay, some kids, they want to come out, they want to get in the room, they like to work out, they want to work hard, they want to learn, and but they don't want to compete because for someone, a reason.
Insecurity.
Yeah, and I can kind of relate. I can understand. They'll come in, but at some point, to me, I think you need to compete. You need to. I think that's the last missing element of wrestling. You need to have that desire to compete. You
Well,
know, the,
here's what I would say.
and, and-
I would
Go ahead.
I was going to just say, I think competition is the truth, right? So it shows you who you are. It's like, oh, you're not working hard enough. Oh, you don't know the moves good enough. Oh, that person has been doing this way, way better than you, or whatever, right? It's the
Right.
truth of the martial art. But some kids, especially JV kids, they could find that out 2 or 3 weeks a year. Or, I mean, you could extend them, right? Like, you could have 15 competitions over 8 to 12 weeks or whatever. And I mean, that's one competition per week. That would be pretty good. Like, I don't think that that's hard.
No.
But some of these kids are wrestling every Tuesday, Thursday, getting beat, 3 times in a day or something. It's like, well, they don't have to know
No.
the truth that often, and this is one of the reasons why I really think that the conference dual meets should only be varsity duels. I feel like they should only have one focus, and it should be a team versus a team. And you can use your JV accordingly. You can use everybody in your lineup accordingly,
Right.
but it's just one team versus the next team. And then the lower level kids compete once a week on the weekends. I don't see how that is such a simple, good idea, but I just don't understand how it's so hard for people to be like, oh no, we're not gonna have JV kids wrestle. It's like, well, what about their parents? Their parents want to see their kid get beat in front of, like, they're not they need to work. This is the message. The message is they're not as good. They need to get better. They're not experienced. They need to focus on these things. Look at that kid. He's been wrestling every day for 12 years, right? Like, that's why he's that good, right?
Right.
I don't know what you want me to tell you. So some of this stuff, I don't know. I don't get it. Cause again, I've seen so many JV kids quit after, a late Thursday night duel because, not only are they out till 9 o'clock, but they just got whooped for no reason. And they're like, this is not for me, coach. It's like, well, yeah, this is not for anybody. Not one person would do what you just did.
Right.
Stay up late for a butt whooping. That don't make any sense.
No. I mean, and it's the catch-22 of the whole situation. You
Yeah.
want to match them up, so
Well,
they're not.
we figured that out, but we figured that out with tournaments, right? Like the pool tournaments where you get
Yeah,
5 matches.
that's the way
It's
to
like,
go.
I mean, we figured it out. Why they could
Yeah.
every lower level kid could wrestle 5 matches a week, and they would get. I mean, it would be a great day for them every single week, and they'd be done by 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock,
Yeah.
right? And they would get the matches that you want. You could film them, and then you could spend all week in analyzing and explaining to the said kid, hey, we got to get better at just a down block. Here's a down block. Here's a high crotch. Here's a single leg. You got 5 days to work on it.
Right.
It's like, that test that we're talking about, the live wrestling, the competition, that test is happening, every week. That doesn't make any, every 3 days. It doesn't always work, but
Right.
either way, I could talk about this stuff forever.
Right.
But yeah, you got anything else in mind? Otherwise, I'll cut it off there, and we'll catch
No,
up
no.
later next week.
Yeah, what do we got coming up?
We have Brandon Lazdowski on Monday, and then we have the Rochelle coaches on Wednesday.
Cool.
Fernie Silva was going to be on tonight,
Right.
but he had to reschedule. He had a class that he had to go to attend. So I think he's coming back on November 1st.
Okay.
So yeah, we're pretty booked and pretty pumped. I think as I put podcasts out, ironically, since I started putting video out, people have started to respond more, want to be on, and now that it's getting closer to the
Yeah,
season,
well,
I
a
think
couple weeks away. So
yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. This is going to be the first year that I really think that I'm going to put energy. I think when I started this last year, it was like right after the first of the year, I told you, I was like, I got to follow something. And I
right.
had to know where people were wrestling. So I started with just the schedules. But this year will be probably the first year of really covering stuff and really diving into going and watching and narrating
Well,
the season.
I like the idea of we, each picked a practice or some, to go to and come back and talk,
Well,
I,
no,
I like,
I'll bring a camera and we'll videos.
yeah, I mean, even if all three of us went to three different, in one day, you went to East, I went to Guilford, Marty went, whatever, or down to Byron, Dakota, I think we should try to get out to the Dakota Lena Winslow duel this year.
Yeah,
I mean,
that could be a good one.
that could be a good one. It usually always is. So
Yeah, I'm down. We'll figure it out,
yeah,
and yeah,
sounds good.
time will tell.
All right, man.
All right. Yep. Good talking to you.
We'll
We'll
talk to
see
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.